I'm going to attempt to go through a set of slides to introduce you to Mint. Caitlin set the tone to help us understand how we get to Mint, the Multi-Enterprise Information Network Tower. You heard the buzzwords of orchestration. How many times did you guys hear that word? Digitalization, how many times did you guys hear that word? I want you guys to envision your supply chains that you work in today or around, depending on your function and role. I would argue that every supply chain practitioner and every company wants resiliency, agility, and some efficiency out of their supply chains in some possible way. Many of you have probably been involved in many projects trying to squeeze every dollar, every hour out of employees to improve your supply chains. And a lot of it starts with the lack of digitalization of the data around your supply chain, as Caitlin pointed out. What Mint is doing, essentially, is allowing us to orchestrate these use cases you see on the screen that are part of every single supply chain you operate in, no matter if it's from the raw materials provider down to the customers and hospitals and patients who are receiving products. So the thought is that we are able to create these supply chain networks. That we hear digital twin, as Caitlin pointed out, in a lot of different spaces, but TraceLink's the true network platform that allows you to create those actual twins of your supply chain in the way you choose to do it. And I'll get into that a bit more later. We talked about the integration component of it. Many systems are out there. I'll tell you a quick story. I like to tell stories, so bear with me. I worked for a chemical manufacturing supply chain for a while. We were responsible for FP&A and financial roll-ups at the end of every month. Who's done month-end work before in their career in any kind of way or capacity? I see a couple hands. 4 instances of SAP, 2 Oracle, 1 Infor at one company. And we were supposed to do global roll-ups by the end of the month within 5 days. And Caitlin's screen pointed out, spreadsheets, not Google Sheets, Excel, macros, cool models. It looked great at the time, but it was time-consuming and it was frustrating to get through. So employees' morale was down, but also our supply chain suffered because we couldn't give information back quickly at the month-end close. So they couldn't go into the next month knowing what they needed to improve on and how to operate better. But everyone's done it, so it's par for the course. We're used to doing it. When you digitize your network, you have access to the data to use it in a more robust way. Our business-to-network integration model makes it very simple and easy for you to plug in your ERP, your TMS, your WMS, and various other systems, black box systems as well, custom integration work, to plug into Mint to interact and exchange that data with all of your supply chain partners. So when we look at this, and this was touched on a bit, but I'm going to walk through it again with some hopeful real-world examples. When we think about the system-to-system approach, that's the pinnacle. That's the top of the top. Perfect world, everyone wants to connect digitally with every one of their partners seamlessly, no questions asked, tomorrow, yesterday even, right? We're able to do that with Mint, system-to-system, across all those partners. Mint is positioned to allow companies to come as they are and scale at their pace. So if system-to-system is not achievable through the examples we heard, system upgrades are in place or in progress. We're dabbling to purchase a new ERP or information system. We're not in the position to upgrade because we don't have the resources in-house. That could be a finance side or actual personnel side. Or there's just reluctance due to prior experience doing integration work, which we've heard a lot from our customer use cases. The system-to-person concept comes into play. It allows you to still interact digitally on one side of the equation, and the left side gets to have the digital product through the Mint canonical model. The bottom is person-to-person. We've heard lots of instances where people choose to start with the human interaction using the UI, getting used to the system. This helps them adopt and change their processes at their pace. When you do digital work, you have to look at SOPs and procedures. How do we function today? If you don't know how you function today, I love Mint. I think Mint's the greatest thing, but it's going to be very challenging for you to get in and make an impact if you've not looked at how you operate today. We help with that through our solution consulting practice. We ask questions. We do assessments. We want to understand how you operate today so we can give you an as-is to-be picture when you implement Mint. As mentioned as well, the format has become a big challenge in the industry. How does my SAP, we'll say R4, the older version, connect to even HANA in SAP? How do I connect to my customers' JD Edwards purchased version of Oracle, right? How do I do that? That's challenging. That's a use case we hear a lot. How do I go from system to system? It's point to point. I've done the point-to-point work. It's fun if you're the person in the role because you're paid to do it, right? But when someone says we have a new piece of business, we want to go to a new market, but it requires integration from system A to system B, it's going to take me 8 months because of our scale, I might not get that piece of business. That's a real-world example. If I can't scale quickly to meet the need, I can't go into that market with that organization. So we allow companies to truly come as they are. As Caitlin mentioned, and I say more, more openly and candid on our customer calls, we don't care what your format is. Respectfully, we don't care. You tell us how you want to integrate into Mint. We take you as you are today. Our mapping team and network success team go to work and make sure that integration is set up properly and functioning so that you can get in the game, as we say, to start exchanging that transactional data with your partners. As you choose to scale, you may go purchase a new shiny piece of ERP equipment, right, the software, and install that. You may want to change your processes, implement some new modules. We work with you on one side of the equation while we don't disturb the rest of the network because you're integrating into TraceLink. So the green sickle you see here, I call it the green sickle. I'll tell you guys a story later if you catch me in the hallway. But the idea is that's our canonical model. One way in for each partner to send and receive data. You don't have to manage the point-to-point. You're going to hear that a lot over the week. You don't manage the point-to-point. You have one point into TraceLink. That lowers the barrier to get into this. I think that democratizes the term we've shopped around a bit. It democratizes everyone's ability to get into the game of exchanging digital data. That is the single biggest barrier. I don't have an IT team. We hear from a lot of the pharmaceutical companies. We're not an IT organization. We're not a software development shop. We don't want to be. Mint. Mint solves that for you because we take on that work to connect the data points, and the network success team maintains it. My other running joke that Shabir's not in the room, which is good, is if TraceLink doesn't have a network, we don't have a business. So it is in our best interest to manage this network, keep it up and running, make you and your customers happy, because this network is going to drive the industry to a better perspective and a better roadmap for the patients. So kind of emphasizing that idea, you may notice some of the logos on the screen. Some of you all may play in some of these areas in your industry. When we look at external manufacturing, it's the exchange between MH and CMOs. I'll cover that in a separate slide. Direct supply, the MH and direct supply material suppliers. And think about that orchestration alone. I have a CMO, and I'm in MH, but I may purchase from direct material suppliers and need to send information to them. But that product is going to the CMO to go through its next step in its life cycle. But I need that information back in my system as well when the CMO receives it. Just think about that over email and spreadsheet. Some of you do it very well today. I believe it. But is it efficient? Is it not a headache every single day to manage that information, sending emails back and forth to get information so you can run your supply chain? Thinking about the logistics piece. My background started in logistics. Logistics is everywhere up and down the supply chain. The product has to move to and fro, back and forth between partners. Logistics is everywhere. If I have to send an email every single time I want to know where a shipment is, I would lose my mind. Think about our consumer experience. How many people bought from Amazon this week or prior to this week getting here? You all participated in some level of commerce exchange, right? You went online, you found a product, you placed a purchase order. Amazon told you you'll get this shipment on the 12th. If the 12th came and passed, you would email Amazon and say, hey, Amazon, where's my product? Amazon's done a very good job at defeating that experience because they give you constant updates. But imagine having to email back and forth. Then let's get to payment. I paid Amazon in that space. In the industry, payment may not be for 30 days, 45 days, whatever the net terms are. But imagine now I have to reconcile invoices manually. I got an invoice, I don't agree with it. I've got to send an email back with a PDF and a spreadsheet of details, and we have to go back and forth and manage our spreadsheets. It all can be done digitally. So you think about the system, forget the system idea, bring us the use case, and let's discuss what you're trying to achieve. We connect to that system, exchange the data, and we build new use cases all the time. The team loves to hear those and do those. Burke's on the product team, they love hearing that stuff. We haven't solved every use case, but we will with the digital exchange of product. With transactions. So when we look at external manufacturing, this is probably the most common one, and that first one, it sets the tone for how I'm going to operate my business. If the forecast is wrong, I cannot confidently purchase product to have it delivered to an endpoint. If I did not tell you what my expectations and requirements are, you didn't agree to them, and if you did agree to them and you got it wrong in production, that information of that forecast sets the tone for how we start our business off. If we get that wrong, we have a bigger problem, and we need to have a business discussion, right? But every transaction you see on the screen typically is done over spreadsheet. There's a delay in spreadsheets. There's manual errors in spreadsheets. The updating of spreadsheets and forwarding emails drives me crazy. If I lose the attachment, I can't get it to you fast enough. If someone goes out of office, they're busy, they don't see that email, the information, we're relying on someone to download a file and key it into their system. It wastes time, it loses your efficiency and loses your resiliency to your supply chain. If we look at the idea of the PO and PO acknowledgments, gave that idea. And when I send purchase orders, I don't want to have to send a second purchase order because I didn't get a confirmation from the first purchase order. Has anyone heard of the bullwhip effect in supply chain? I see some heads nodding. Do your mint smile. Do your mint smile. There you go. Yep. So the bullwhip effect is one simple one. It's driven from down the supply chain. But the idea is that if I create an order frenzy at the bottom from a customer level and it goes up top, I've disrupted the forecast that was expected to be done by the manufacturer to their CMOs. It can be done in any level of the supply chain. If I'm an MAH and I want to order stuff, and I go to my CMO and I place a PO, and I realize it's not been confirmed, I'm going to place another PO. Worst case, I go to another CMO or another partner and ask for the same PO. And then magically 30 days later, I get a dock full of product. I've now overloaded my warehouse, but I've also shaken the supply chain at the top level because now people are now scrambling to redo their forecast, reimagine what they should have in production to replenish the warehouse. So again, we cause these disruptions because of latency in the supply chain. I won't cover the rest of the transactions, but you can imagine how this can go down the list of, with your external manufacturing, how we can improve with digitalizing the transactions, getting them into your system real time. And as Caitlin mentioned, visualizing that data to use it to fuel the supply chain. Logistics, again, my favorite space. We're looking at this from this perspective, though, not necessarily the 3PL doing order to cash, more so them being a shipper for the manufacturer or CMO in a case, right? So the idea is that I'm going to send a warehouse ship order to a 3PL to ship downstream to a customer. Doing that digitally allows some streamlined communication. It allows us to be a lot more efficient and key in on the proper data being exchanged back and forth. But when we do this in a manual format, there's delays in the email. I send that email to ship an urgent product to a customer, to a hospital, to a site. Someone doesn't see that email, we've now delayed the supply chain. Very simple and easy. Patient's not getting product, someone's gonna be upset about invoicing, and again, we have that idea of I have to ship from another warehouse potentially, or risk customer satisfaction. Simple things that we think about daily, but can be improved with the digital transactions. When we think about inventory, the balance report and the update, while it's physical count of inventory, that's really financial, that's dollars. How much inventory am I holding in a warehouse? How much is my 3PL gonna charge me? Did they ship the right quantity over the last quarter? Do we align on quantities that should have been shipped? Again, when I go to pay invoices now, I talk about inventory carrying costs and what the work that was done with 3PL. If I have that data digitally and I can reconcile it, I'm not sifting through spreadsheets, emails, PDFs to do some math in a spreadsheet to hopefully give my accounts payable, accounts receivables team a heads up that, hey, don't pay invoice 123 because we think it's wrong. It takes too long, right? You're out of time. The bottom transactions here, where you see the info areas, in the space where we're doing the order to cash from the 3PO level, we have the capability to send copy transactions, right? So the MAH wants to have that actual transaction back in their system that the 3PO did some work. So again, you think about any scenario you can imagine in a supply chain from this angle of logistics, the data can flow back and forth and update multiple partner systems to give a true snapshot of the supply chain. Commerce. This is the big one, right? Next to internal manufacturing, we produce the product, we ship the product to a location in the site. Now we're talking about commerce for Mint, or with Mint for commerce, rather. This is very huge because we look at now, we're at the hospital dispense level where they are administering the actual drugs to patients, but now they're ordering upstream from a manufacturer, maybe a wholesaler, if they go direct, right? This is them placing the orders. We heard the word portal. Today, hospitals have to log into a lot of portals to place orders from various manufacturers or wholesalers. Yes, they're sitting at a desk. Yes, they're probably comfortable, but to log in multiple times to create a purchase order from multiple entities is time consuming. You're manually keying into a system to do that. Very few of them are actually leveraging their in-house systems to digitally create purchase orders to those entities. So we're able to connect into those hospital systems directly. There are a lot of names I won't name of the systems in place, but we're able to connect to them, the digital marketplaces and the in-house systems, to send the transaction through Mint and send it out to the proper wholesaler direct manufacturer. So it gives them one way to push orders out of their system to replenish, and they're not having to log into multiple portals and track multiple portals of information back and forth of where's this PO, where's this PO, where's this ASN, is it shipped, so on and so forth. We capture the price sales catalog. This is a big one because we've heard several use cases where if the price sales catalog is out of date, when I go in and place POs, I'm buying at the wrong price. Who's going to be mad at everybody? Accounts payable and accounts receivable. They're going to look at that invoice and say, this isn't right. They go to war with each other to figure it out when they should be blaming someone in the supply chain side, right? Hey, did we update the proper, do we have the proper data inside the system to make these purchases? That can be done digitally. If you can't pay invoices on time or properly, there's penalties. If you pay on time or early, you get a kickback, which is great. But you can't get either one of those right if you're doing this manually and you're delaying the supply chain from being proper. We talked about PO acknowledgement, the advanced ship notice. Advanced ship notice is a very key transaction to anyone in the supply chain. From a warehousing perspective, if I don't know product is on the way, how can I prepare for it? Better yet, those organizations who do a cross-dock type of idea, or they're going to take that product when it's received and it goes immediately to its next stage in its life cycle, I can't properly plan for that to be as best as I can be and as agile as I can be because I'm waiting on an email. I don't have the right teams in place. For a product that requires special handling, that team's off today. They're at home. They're not at the warehouse to receive that product properly, or in the commerce space at the hospital level to receive that product properly. So think about it from the perspective of planning for your best day every day in supply chain. Invoice and remittance we kind of touched on. Return authorization, credit, debit adjustment. Those are two huge and that we're going to talk about more in the afternoon sessions. But again, you think about the returns process. In supply chain, I think the reverse logistics is probably arguably the toughest to tackle in any industry, simply because product has sat, there's no data captured, nothing in the system, we're using spreadsheets to reconcile. So imagine being able to do that in a digital format, having those dashboards we talked about where it's visual and I have a history of it. I can talk about it now without having to sift through emails, and hopefully I find the right number of the purchase order to discuss the scenario. So all that, we talked about high level of the transactions of just those three verticals, and there are a few more that we're going to touch on. I'm going to dive quickly, though, into the Opus solution environment, which was touched on earlier. So now we've digitized our supply chain, right? We've made that digital twin. We've created some networks that speak directly to how I operate my business. With Mint now, they use the word customize, right? I can arrange the solution to better tailor and fit my business as I see it today. So when I think about improving, again, that as is to be concept, what are we doing today? What are we lacking? What do we want to improve on? So now we look at the Open Solution Designer. Make Mint solutions specific to your supply chain needs. It gives you a canvas to play with as you were kids many years ago, right? You go in and you think about, how do I want this screen to look? Do I want to create some different attributes to display data that come from these transactions? What do my partners need to do their job better so I don't have to reach out as much or request as much? We can create these visuals and these screens and these setups and workflows to manage how Mint operates for your business. So essentially giving you the keys to the car and how you have a great time on the weekend is what I like to call it. You can also create roles and permissions. So now we've created this space. I want to delegate roles and specific permissions and visuals to certain entities inside my organization. And on the partner side, you can set that up inside the Open Solution environment and allow you, again, to curate the space that you want to use. Now we've built our networks. We've got some orchestrations moving around. We've now customized our Mint solution to our liking, how we want to operate. Now, we talked about data a moment ago. All this data is now flowing through Mint. It's out there. How many use Tableau or Power BI, Excel macros, if you heads not and use your Mint smiles, right? But think about that. Think about you have to hiring a developer to write a lot of that logic and code to pull out all the data in from a data lake, right? And again, some of you say you're not an IT company. You don't want to be. I understand. But data engineers and data science is something that is very key to driving the visuals and business intelligence that are behind the scenes with all the data you're transacting. Now that it's all digital, you're not sifting spreadsheets and tying things together across a network. The network you're using is Mint. This isn't on your drive versus someone else's drive and using some cloud solution that is disconnected still. You have an actual solution where all your data is flowing to and from all your partners. Now you can create reports and dashboards, start getting business insights. Now that data becomes real. You're getting it in your systems, in your respective systems, and your supply chain is moving better. But now you have the data to make proactive business decisions. You have a chance to actually get ahead of an issue or an impediment coming down your supply chain. You can hold your partners accountable to SLAs that you have agreed upon via contract, but didn't have the best way to track it because, again, you're pulling data together via spreadsheets and PDF. Now this data is real and live. You can create these reports and dashboards on your own. We have a team that manages these as well, and then we're going to create out of the box, but also you can do custom reports and dashboards that allow you, again, to tell the story you want to tell for your particular business. But again, if I had a button to delete this from the screen, I would. You can't do this if the data is not actually digitized. It's not going to happen. This is probably, I think, the coolest feature. Again, from my time in the industry, it was always using macros and becoming Excel wizards, right? But the challenge always was, I have 30% of my data to tell 30% of the story, right? So now we have to infer the other 70% and hope we get it right. And you guys are probably math whizzes. That's not a good probability of me getting it right with 70% of data missing. The more data you digitize with those partners, the better it is. Mint enables you to do that in a seamless, simple way that where we support you and your partners on a network. So I think I'm a bit ahead of time. So I'm going to pause and let,
Questions?
But I hope I painted a picture because there are a lot of sessions. I wanted to set the tone. I didn't want to go too far into Mint. There are a lot of sessions to cover it. But if you want to digitize your supply chain, don't make it hard on yourself. Don't try to become an IT software company unless that's a strategic project that's inside your organization's four walls, which would be great. But I'd beg to argue that a lot of companies don't want to stand up a full IT powerhouse to manage outside of the four walls because you all have internal processes that you need to champion and manage. That's where the focus should be, in my opinion. And Mint allows you to work outside of your four walls with all your partners, no matter where they are in their supply chain digitalization journey. So again, you think about resiliency, agility, and efficiency. Ask any person in leadership, even individual contributors, that's what they strive for, even if they don't know it verbally. They're trying to be better every single day, and you can't do that with manual processes and disparate systems. So I'll yield my time.
Any questions for Terrians? Thank you.
Okay. I'll give you that.
Yep, got a question.
Yeah, one quick question. Is there a right time in an organization's lifetime to implement Mint? So let's say if I'm a small pharma company, I don't have a complex supply chain yet. Maybe I have one 3PL, one manufacturer that I work with, and also I don't have a lot of budget to spend on additional technology. So is there a right time to start thinking about Mint?
There is never a wrong time. and I say that, I want to tell a story, but the time won't allow me. But I will tell you that the longer you wait, you delay the chance to be better. If again, the practitioners in this room, if you fit the persona that was just described, you've probably tried every way you can imagine to be better, be faster, be stronger as a supply chain. Mint allows you to come as you are. So we can start with the use case of a manual idea. You don't have to have a massive ERP system in place. Right? The CSV flat file concept was even discussed. If you can produce a spreadsheet or a text file over FTP, you're digital. You're starting somewhere until you want to grow and now purchase an ERP system or scale up, but it gets you started with your partners. I would also stretch to say your partners, there's probably a big handful of them who want you to send digital product. A lot of them are not thinking heavy enough to say, I want you to do it. They're not forcing everyone. We have heard those conversations where you have to be digital by 2025. I see some head nods in the room, right? But the idea is that this gets you started in a very easy, I won't say low cost, I'm not a salesperson, I do not speak about cost, but the idea is that the barrier to entry is extremely low, and the longer you wait, you delay, again, reaping benefits of being digital. Digital gives you the same benefits I spoke to as whether you're the licensee or the partner. The digital data and dashboards and reporting capability alone allow you to do better with your business, no matter how small you are. So one partner, 3 partners, 2 products, it doesn't really matter because you do this one time, you're digital forever, right? And so now as you add more transactions or you build that system, you're just adding on to what you have in place. You have one, oh, Peter, yeah, I've got it.
We have another question.
It's right here in the front.
Mina.
So what?
Is it working?
It's working?
Okay, good.
So what if we are in exactly the opposite position of the colleague? If it's a bigger company with a lot of legacy system, processes, tons, millions of data spread everywhere. how Tresling is planning to help there, how you will get this data into the network, as you mentioned, and what's your plans also to integrate with the partner. So, I mean, we can reach out to the partner asking them to integrate with Tresling, but still they will need to do something. So they will need also to see that they have resources and all of this stuff. So exactly the opposite position of the colleague, if it's a big company with a lot of legacy systems and processes, I would say, and tons of data.
Yeah, for us, it's the same process. I mean, we like to do the as is, to be, do discovery, understand where you are today, how many systems you have, what they do, how they operate and function. And that's also, part of that is a conversation internally with, from your strategy perspective. Is there an IT plan in place to pare down those systems and go to one central system? We have use cases where SAP HANA's been chosen as the pinnacle, and they look down and say, well, we've got 7 systems we want to integrate. They have a plan to do it, so we're starting the connection with SAP up top with them, and they're going to pare down their connections over time because that's an internal bit of work. To Caitlin's point, if you've got 5 systems, that's 5 of you on the network, which is not where you want to go. I think the strategy for that is to look to say internally, we have to come down to get as close to one system as possible. If one's not achievable, less than what you have today, and we will make that connection into it. But it's an as is, to be, it's a discovery, it's a process to understand. Before we go forward and ink anything, we want to understand what you're doing. And so once we get that on paper, it's easy now to have the conversation of, here's the possibilities, how do you want to start? Same with the partner on the other side. Some of them may be in a position where they're in the process of an upgrade or purchasing a new system. We understand where they are today and do our best to integrate them in that moment. But if they say we need a couple months because we're transitioning or we're mid-implementation already, they may want to start with the UI to appease you, right? And then once they're ready to onboard their solution, we pick up there, repeat the process, get all the requirements, integrate them, and turn on that solution if they're not already on the network. If they're on the network, it's easy. Like Caitlin mentioned, turnkey.
Stefan, am I on the mic?
Yeah.
So just to add on a little bit to that point, if you do have a plan to integrate all of your disparate systems into one, whether it's HANA or something else, that's great. But on the Tracelink side, as an entity on our system, we can support more than one integration, right? So if you did have 3 ERPs because you acquired different entities over time, we can build separate integrations for you. One using iDocs for SAP, one using flat files, or maybe even one using the UI. So you're not limited to the one integration. We just talk about that so you guys sort of understand the concepts of how the system works. But we understand that companies have various different systems and various different reasons why they might need more than one connection. So there's no reason you can't have more than one connection if your business requires it, but it's not a requirement for building those unique connections to the other partner. So, and Terrian's, if you were in the architect session, he'll go through the blueprinting, what we do. So with every company, we go through a blueprinting session, we map out what systems you have, what integrations that you need to build, and all of that stuff. So we work very closely to figure out what meets your needs. So you're not limited to one connection, but if you have one, then that's great as well.
Thank you. One more.
Got one.
Yeah, Pasi Kemppainen from Sandoz Pharmaceuticals. Thanks for the very interesting, inspiring presentation also for Caitlin. Actually, building on top of what Caitlin was mentioning about these multi-enterprise connections. So we just finished our first mini implementation, actually, as of this week, successful in production. So a bit of excited to extend the use of Mint for other cases as well. So from implementation point of view, how do you see it for dashboard implementations? So if we have like a multiple of external partners like importers, distributors, and so forth, so we need each and every time separate Mint interface. Are the dashboard also the stakeholder specific so that we cannot combine the data, let's say, from all the 3PLs and importers to one dashboard? And from the other side, if we integrate, let's say, our master data system or a demand and supply planning system with the same companies, do we need the separate Mint subscriptions as well? And are the dashboards, again, specific for those interfaces? so that we actually end up having silos in terms of dashboards, whereas we actually want to have a one dashboard environment where we can see all these integrations from the, from the one display or from the one UI.
Before I answer, I want to make sure we don't. Oh. Do we have any reports and dashboards, our team in here, before I go in, or Caitlin? Yeah, so you won't have to necessarily create a new set. So you have your report and dashboard for your view of all your partners. There are filters that are built into the report, so you can, or dashboards and reports, so you can segregate the data as you need for individual entities and share those specific views with those partners. That's the simple answer I give you. I think we had a deeper conversation about it, but that's the simple way you would do it, to isolate data for your larger group to see everything, but those partners to see only data that is pertinent to them.
Yeah, but I mean, let's imagine like Middle East. We have like 4 or 5 countries, and many 3PLs and distributors in the future. So we'd like to see the one dashboard for all of these distributors, regardless of the market. And now I understand that the Min is basically like import distributor specific, where you end up having a kind of a partner specific dashboard. So that's actually the need we have.
I think we want to talk about that offline. It's like a cool use case we want to discuss. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
In my life, yeah. So you can share the same dashboards with your partner. The Opus platform makes sure that any entity on the network only has access to the data they belong to. So if your partner uses the same dashboard that you use, they will see only a subset of the data appropriate for them. Or you can design partner-specific dashboards as part of your solution as well. It's up to you how you do your dashboarding.